Welcome to episode 27 of Divine Superconductor Radio. This is your host, Matt Blackburn. Today I'm speaking with David Limacher of Vigor Lifestyles. I've been friends with David for many years now. I'm a big fan of his products. He has an elk antler product and a Chaga product, both in tincture and chunk form. And I think it's just really great what he's doing. He has been sharing a lot of great information for years, and I've really learned a lot from him about health, and especially with light and eating seasonally and locally and the importance of that. But this episode's a little different. We kind of go off on a lot of philosophical tangents. We do talk about the demasculinization agenda of the male, and we do talk about veganism and just how to recover from that and health. But we also go off on some pretty controversial, interesting rabbit holes, which you guys will definitely enjoy. All right, I'm here with David Limacher. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We've been friends for, I don't know, kind of lost count, 4 or 5 years now, something like that.
Yeah.
And I really love just what you're about, not only your company and your awesome high integrity products, but we've always connected on a deeper level, talking about different conspiracies and things that are going on in the world. So it's been a fun friendship.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, that's where it comes from. It comes from a good friendship comes from a place that isn't understood by everyone, right? You go for a friendship to be real. I think you got to get on a deeper level. You have to mine into the soul, really, right?
I love it. Yeah, I fully agree. And I really like how you talk a lot about kindness and a lot of these things that are missing. But you and I have seen all the craziness in the alternative health world, all the infighting, which I think is kind of planned, and we might talk about that later. But a lot of people just forget to be just kind to one another, right? It's like one of the most basic things.
Well, it is one of the most basic things, and that's coming out of the biohacking space, coming out of this health space. Everybody's always thinking about who's better than who's doing something better than the next person, and what's right and what's wrong, and everybody's trying to prove everybody wrong, and everybody's trying to knock everybody down. You build somebody up. We all build a guru up, and then we tear them down, and I just got me. I've always, by my nature, has always been a mediator. My father was a great mediator, and I am. I like to see people get along, and I kind of got to a point where it was like I got sick of watching the infighting amongst these folks that we hold in a higher regard than, say, a common citizen. We've made these people popular. We've made, this guy, he's the food expert. This guy, he's the pharma expert, and this guy's the Monsanto expert. And it's like we're all trying to fight amongst each other, and everybody's the whole mean thing, tearing each other down. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't take it. I couldn't stand it. And I found myself getting wrapped up into it. And that's when I realized that the best hack that I can do for myself is like a spiritual hack. It's an emotional hack. It's learning how to be kind and nice is pays far greater dividends than having a bunch of information stored up in your head.
Yeah, what good is it, right? If the message is being blocked because people see that you're kind of crazy and your emotions are unbalanced, and they're like, I'm not going to listen to what this guy has to say.
Well, yeah, I think, and you're right. Like what I saw on your Insta story earlier about, fixing the brain damage and getting the brain working in order to find that spot where you can actually be kind and loving and joyful. And that's where I was at. That's where I started from. I knew I had a broken brain when I was a kid. My lifestyle, when nobody knew anything about lifestyle, you could do whatever you want. And I remember being, I don't know, I was roughly like 15 years old, and I tried to commit suicide when I was 15 years old. Obviously, I'm still here, and obviously, I'm healed now. But it took a long time to go from me realizing that suicide attempt was actually a broken brain. There was nothing really wrong with me, but my brain wasn't functioning, and so it really became, I don't know, maybe like a 15-year process to try to figure out how to fix myself with no information. Right, all I had was, I'm almost 40 years old, so all I had was encyclopedias. Right, and I'm trying to find answers from encyclopedias, And so the path that I was on was always a path to fix my brain in order to become the person that I want to be. And when I fixed the brain, I still had I was still caught up in that ego fighting. This person's wrong, that person's wrong, that's stupid, this is stupid. And it wasn't until I discovered that actually I'm always searching. I was searching for a healthy brain, but I was actually searching for love, learn how to be loving and joyful. And I think that kind of came out of, and you know, your listeners are probably familiar with the Abraham Hicks material. And it was really Asking It Is Given was the book that I read, where I began to learn about the emotions that I was having, and where I was and where I had to go. And so, you know, you look at the emotional guidance scale, there was a scale in that book, 22 emotions, emotional guidance scale. And I kind of realized that I was existing in this like middle to lower level of emotions. And I had no idea. I was smart. I was making good money. Everything was going right in my life, successful. But I didn't realize until I was stuck in those certain emotions that I needed to climb out of those emotions in order to get to love and joy. And then once you experience love and joy, I mean, we do it through when we're kids playing and having fun, and you know, maybe a wedding or a marriage. We know when everybody's dancing at the end of the night, that's pure love and pure joy. I wanted to see if I could exist in that all the time. And I thought it is almost possible to live in love and joy 24/7. So that's kind of like been my hack for like the last year and a half, is like it's a spiritual hack to become loving and joyful all of the time. It's not possible, I'll tell you that right now. But I'm getting close, right? And that's kind of what my focus, my big focus in my life is at this point.
I love it. Yeah, society doesn't make it easy, right? Modern living, from a physical standpoint, environmental, just all the stuff in our food and our water, the non-native EMF, that all makes it hard to exist in that part of the emotional scale.
Well, that makes sense because, and I think, you know, you start getting into to some of the darker occult stuff, and some of the, you know, some of the darker mystic teachings, you know, even in Satanism and whatnot, and you realize that their aim is to keep you in a fear state, in a fear or angered state. If you look at everything that's on TV, every program, right? Like it's, you know, I'm a Canadian. I get tons of American news because America runs the world, so which is fine. And I get all this news, you know, telling me, oh, guns are bad. This is bad. Oh, we need to do this and that. And then 10 minutes later, the show that comes on, it's all about guns. It's like, what the fuck? You know, you're telling people what to do, and then you're giving them entertainment of what you don't want them to do. It's just the most mixed up thing. And I think that cycle that we keep people in through the chemicals in our food, especially like glyphosate, anything that breaks down the microbiome is destroying the brain, right? So give us processed foods that break down the microbiome, give us fucking shitty water full of chemicals, and teach us, you know, to stare at televisions and that the sun is bad. Is like, if you believe all that shit, you're never going to get to love and joy. It's impossible. You can't be sick and have a broken brain and get to love and joy. Like people will say, "Oh, well, I disagree with that. I think that's not true. I felt love, I felt joy, but you can't sustain it unless you clean all that shit up." And that's why we biohack. I think the reason why we biohack is to fix our body so that they work right, fix our emotions, and fix our brain, and learn to love. That's the ultimate goal, biohacking or spiritual, whatever you want to call it, life. It's love.
I like it. There goes the clean rating for this show. No, I'm kidding.
I'm sorry. I swear, I'm Canadian. That's what we do. Hockey players, man. That's what we
you
do.
you reminded me of David Hawkins. I think I saw him in a video lecture years ago, and he was drinking Coca-Cola out of an aluminum can. You know, it's one thing if it's Mexican Coke in glass. He was
Yeah.
drinking Coca-Cola, and I was like, wow. I mean, I think I've even heard stories of, you know, yogis doing like 8 vials of acid and then showing their students that it doesn't have any effect and all these things. But
Oh my goodness.
I think I think the physical body definitely responds when you input chemicals, right? I mean, natural or synthetic. So
Well, for sure. I
yeah.
mean, we're like, I don't know. I think the way I think about it, I don't know. I think a little bit different than people. Think of a mushroom trip. Um, I kind of see that in the multi-dimensional world on a normal day-to-day level, right? Like it's like sometimes I feel like I'm hallucinating all the time, and I don't know why. It's always been like that, right? But I see everything as in this context of some multi-dimension. Every chemical, everything in our environment has this like this multi-dimensional vibration to it, and you can measure it and you can draw it and we can draw a picture of it. But there's like a dimension to everything that we're exposed to that has an impact on our own vibration, our own soul, our DNA, our higher self. It's all interrelated, right? There's the illusion is that it's all of what we see. The illusion is that it's all connected. Everything is connected, and so anytime you put any of these kind of substances, you're automatically changing your tune. You're changing your vibration, and you have to be careful, right? And we're you don't learn in school what to put in your body and what not to put in your body, right? We don't teach that shit. We teach people that the dinosaurs made oil, right? Like stupid things like that, or like the glaciers carved these valleys, when we know, when the electric universe theory is telling us that it's the sun that had a discharge and created these like it's it's all nonsense and bullshit. And unless you have to get to a place to love. I think you have to get to a place of love in order to start realizing what is true and what isn't true, and what's right for you, and what what works for you. Because anytime the emotions are outside of love and joy and optimism, it's clouding your belief system. It's throwing a cog in the machine that's not supposed to be there, and it changes everything, right? And it's like, you do great work on educating people on what to do, and their lifestyle stuff, and it helps a ton of people. And it's funny when people don't agree with you, how how triggered they can get. And it's like, there's resistance in there. There's something that's being thrown into the system that isn't working, because a lot of so you share some of the responses on your program or on your Instagram about what these people say when they get mad at you. And I'm going, wow, man, this ain't from a place of love. It's from a place of hurt or pain or fear or anger. And yeah, you have to be have to be sympathetic to them and forgive them. But at the same time, it's like, man, like there's a lot of people like that.
How do you balance it with the demasculinization agenda? Because I'm sure you're aware. I think we might have even talked about it in the past. The atrazine in the water. Alex Jones is talking about the frogs turning gay. That was a big meme years ago, and just and just the sedation of the male. Because I think there is that trying to tame the masculine, and I think anger has its place, and I think you might be on the same page. Like, what are your general thoughts on that? Because I think that's a big part of it too. Like,
Well, yeah,
they're
I mean,
trying
I
to
mean,
basically castrate.
oh, for sure. I totally think they're trying to change the male. And I don't think it's good. you know um I am just trying to not say anything too controversial, but I do think that we're sort of losing that bit of masculinity, right? Like, right now we're seeing a really beautiful rise in feminism, right? I'm watching, my wife. She's so smart and so talented, and she does amazing in her job, and she's in a leadership role, and you're seeing more women becoming empowered because they are amazing. They do make great decisions, but it's a yin and yang effect, right? You know, God created the male and the female. He didn't create, a female that was with masculine tendencies and the male with feminine tendencies. Sure, both of them had a balance of their feminine and masculine sides, but there is a role for masculinity, right? Like that's traditionally, over time, we're to help people survive. We help the tribe survive. We go out and we kill things, and we kill intruders, and we cut down trees, and we we get into fights, and we get angry, and we protect our territory. If somebody breaks into your house, you're not going to go, oh well, geez, don't come in, and oh, don't hurt us, and don't take anything. No, you're going to defend your place. That's going to piss you off, and you got to deal with it, right? So there is a place, like you said, there is a place for it. And I don't know. My wife actually said to me today, she goes, I was out for coffee with a friend, and my wife says, like, she goes, I think why these women like hanging around with you is because you're a real man. And of course I laugh because it's coming from my wife, right? I'm going, oh, okay, I'm a real man. Well, what do you mean by that? She goes, you're a real masculine man. You're a good man. You got a good balance of your feminine side, but you're still a man. And that's why, and then she goes, I think that's why women like being around you. And so that's a cool thought. And I appreciate you bringing that up, but yeah, it's totally, man. I totally agree with you that there's an agenda there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that I've been studying like the destruction of the family unit, and there's a lot of talk right now about polyamory and how that's the future. And I've been watching that scene for, I don't know, the last 8 years.
Hmm.
Aubrey Marcus, Joe Rogan, that whole crew. And I think there's kind of like a dark agenda there to kind of disrupt the monogamous family unit.
Well, actually, I watched a documentary the other day, or yeah, it was yesterday morning. It was about the Weather Underground, the Weathermen. The documentary was called, and it was, and they were the domestic terrorist group. But this documentarian, what he did is he linked all of the beginnings of the Weathermen, and how it's actually been kept alive in today's society. They run a lot of businesses. Their members are teaching in universities and law schools, and there's a web of that came out of the Weathermen, and a lot of their agenda was what you're talking about, and a lot of their agenda is still continuing on, and those same people that did that Weatherman years and years ago are still doing it, right? And if you don't do it, if you're not into their program, like one of the popular things that the Weathermen said, they wanted to get rid of capitalism completely, right? They wanted to execute 25 million people. They wanted to send people to concentration camp, re-education camps is what they called it. But they wanted to kill 25 million capitalists in the United States, right? And they had this documentarian. He just basically gave you the information about what their agenda is. I'm not going to say what it's here because they'll figure it out. They'll find it. But it's what's going on today. And they've been running this agenda since the 1960s, and they're trying to break it apart. I fully believe that.
Wow. Have you looked into that? That's fascinating. Have you looked into the Jan Irving, like MK Ultra, CIA, Terrence McKenna, Brave New World, like Aldous Huxley, that whole connection of the psychedelic movement and how that was co-opted?
Oh yeah, well yeah, of course, man. They had to co-opt that movement, right? They co-opt every single movement. Like, to think that the biohacking industry isn't full of people who are co-opted or being paid, or that this industry doesn't have spies running through it that are on a CIA payroll somewhere. Of course they are. You know what I mean? So I always think in this terms. Like, people say, "Oh, well, that's skeptical. It's conspiracy theorist." I always try to put myself in the shoes of a sociopathic um, person with a ton of power, and I wanted to maintain and preserve that power. What am I going to do? I'm going to pay people to infiltrate every single major business on earth, every organization, every religious organization, every biohacking industry, for the pharmaceutical industry, you name it, every single industry. I'm going to have people working in there feeding information back. And anytime I identify a target that's a threat to my power, I am going to go and do something to that target, pay them, do whatever, say, here, money, go away, stop, whatever, or watch him, surveillance. That's what I'm going to do to hold power, right? One of the biohackers that we know, they're smart people. They have a lot of power. If we really wanted to unite and throw ourselves behind a movement, we could. And they couldn't, and nobody could stop us, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the cosmic disclosure stuff. All of the I got a really good friend who I was actually at contact in the desert and speaks there, right? So those people too, at the same time, that's all infiltrated, and they infiltrate that stuff in order to control it, because you can't break out of the narrative. You can't tell people the truth. If people know the truth, then everything's fucked. All the institutions are completely screwed, right? There's nothing you could do. And the biohacking industry, I would never name who I think is, an asset or whatever you want to call it, but I know they're there. Yeah. And the health food industry, they're there too.
Are you talking about Jordan Sather? That guy? Because I know they censored him at that event.
Yeah, well, I'm actually really good friends with Jason Quitt. He wrote a book called Forbidden Knowledge. Him and I, this will be throw a little tangent out there for the audience, but him and I spent in our last past lives together. We worked in a super soldier program in in Germany in our last lives. So that's, I mean, you could believe that or you don't want to believe that. I don't care who believes that, but that's what happened.
I love it. Yeah, I got into researching what was going on in the world with Project Camelot. I think we talked about that many years ago, and I watched their guerrilla style interviews for like 4 years, like whistleblower interviews, and that really changed my life because it opened me up to whether it's real or not. I mean, there was all these different people, unless they're all really good actors, and all of their stories kind of meshed, kind of made sense with each other. That was how I actually got into health, was researching, psychic soldiers, super soldiers, and all all the projects, Montauk project
Yes.
and all of
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Project Camelot broke the door open on that, and the whistleblowers are breaking the doors open on a lot of things, right? I worked in government for 4 years. I actually worked for the premier of Saskatchewan, which is the same thing as your governor. Uh, our premier only runs a million people. Your governor's got 35, 40 million people to look after, right? The size of Canada. But I worked in the government levels, right? I saw what people would say to the public and what people talked about behind closed doors. As a 24-year-old kid fresh out of university, and I'm sitting around these government tables listening to the people talk, and then I see what is said in public, and I'm going, wow, it really is that deceptive. Politics is really that deceptive. And if politics is deceptive and there's all these checks and balances like freedom of information requests, what the hell is going on in private business? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's in these private organizations that aren't beholden to any sort of regulatory or governance.
Yeah, I'm interviewing, like my next interview is with a guy, Kyle Mamunis, and we're going to talk about the culture of scientific research. And what you were just saying made me think of that, how all these PubMed studies and clinical studies are very tightly controlled to where it's get this result or nothing. Like you have to get this result for the study and we'll publish it. And that's kind of unfortunately how it is with a lot of supplements, and people, they're wanting people to buy certain things, and it's sad. I mean, it's not only in politics, but it's in health. So even when you're trying to research what they're not telling you, you still get turned around.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so crazy, and it's funny you mentioned that. Like for the our elk velvet antler, in order for us to get elk velvet antler, to prove what it does and this and that, like it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars just to run a simple study through a university, right? And so, people are like, oh, well, why don't you get all these studies done for elk velvet antler? And I'm like, well, because people take it and they feel it. So why do I need to have a study to prove that? I'd rather have nothing there that people can go from and say, well, it's supposed to do this and this and this, right? One of the biggest things in the supplement industry, which is really interesting, right? We all know the big money moved in. All the big guys came in and bought, Parmalee, and all these companies bought all these smaller companies. And I've always been the small guy in the industry, right? I've always been tried to be as authentic as possible. I had offers. We didn't sell out. We had offers from bigger companies, and I knew I would lose control and it wouldn't be what it is. But I didn't want to be a part of that. I did not want to be a part of that matrix, that reality that those people had chosen in the supplement industry, right? That's why I think the supplement industry is completely broken, is because of the studies, because of the stuff that's been funded, and they're funding it in order to get exactly what they want. The industry is so broken for supplements that it's almost comical, some of the stuff you see on the shelves. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you shake your head. If you go to these trade shows, and you're just like, wow, man, this is all about money now. These people don't give a shit if it helps anybody or heals anyone.
I
So
love that you said, like, planning to sell is something that a lot of CEOs have, even at the inception when they start the supplement company. And that to me is insane. If people can just identify who those people are that have that intention, like, oh, I'm going to create this supplement company, grow it for 2 years, and then sell it, and then go retire in Hawaii or whatever. That's a
mhm.
lot of people's goal.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. I mean,
right?
when I got on elk antler, right? For me, I've been on this stuff since 2000, late 2008. I'm going on 11 years on this on the elk antler, and the only reason why I started this company is because there was nobody providing a stable supply of elk antler or the highest quality elk antler, and I loved the product when I first took it. I couldn't believe the energy I had. I couldn't believe how I just wanted to go work out. My recovery was just like so insanely fast, and I just felt so friggin' good on this stuff. I used it for 3 years, and it was like I would drive to a farm 2 hours north of town just to get the stuff. And after about 2 years of doing that, I'm going, why am I doing this? Why don't I just start a company and start selling it to people? And we never really I don't advertise. I never really advertise. I don't care. I don't want to tell people. I don't want to say like, hey, you have to buy this stuff because it's the best because this study said so. I want people to find this organically. I want people to run into elk antler, feel it, love it, like it. That's all I care about. What did you feel? Everybody's different. Some people sleep better on it. Some people don't sleep better on it. Some people have too much energy. Some people lift more in the gym. Some people recover faster. Some people can run farther and faster in marathons. Like it's the results are right across the board, but we don't do it because we're trying to get rich from this stuff. We do it because when you see results and you see somebody benefiting from it, it makes you feel so damn good. That's where you get off. Yeah, you make a bit of money, but it's like when you actually help somebody. I don't know. I've bought 2 brand new trucks. I thought that was gonna make me happy. I don't care. Right now, I don't care. I want to help people, make people feel better, and that's what's missing in the supplement industry. It's the heart of a company is what's missing. Vega, large company, you know, great for them. I'm happy for their success, but when it sold and made all that money, it started to lack heart, and that's what matters to me when I'm choosing which company to work with or purchase from.
I love it, man. Yeah, and all that plant protein is super inflammatory
Oh
too,
yeah,
and pea
I know.
protein.
I know it's so bad. I can't. Oh, like I can't know how people eat that stuff. I eat that and it's just like, and it's like, oh my god, your guts are like just, oh, what's going on here? I don't know.
Yeah,
We know, but
you saw me go back and forth for years, vegan, vegetarian, and now that I understand the agenda, which I'm sure we'll talk about, you connect the dots. Our mutual friend Tristan Haggard does, but you look at transhumanism, you look at just the whole fake meat, lab grown meat, and then just all of the cultural pushes that are co opted, and it really becomes clear, that ruminant animals meat is nutrition for humankind
oh yeah,
and builds the brain and healthy body and families and babies and all that. So
yeah. Like I have my family, my genetic line comes from northern England and from Iceland and Norway, right? And if you went to Iceland and told my my family living in Reykjavik there that they need to get off the meat and just start eating plants, they would just look at you and go like, you're friggin' nuts, right? Like you tell you Canadians, I grew up on milk and meat and potatoes from the garden and garden food, and we canned peaches and we threw potatoes in boxes in the floor. Like I'm that old that's what we did. It was like pretty primitive stuff, but I never had health problems. Never ever 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 had health problems as a kid. I was healthy. I was strong. I was a good athlete. I did well in school. The broken brain came from other things. We're not going to talk about those, but when you're too young using cannabis, that's a bad thing. Um, but yeah, we have to eat the meat. And when you switched over back and forth, I was concerned, but I always knew you'd come back to meat. I just always knew it. I mean, I think the body knows, right? And if you get rid of the matrix bullshit around you, then it's like, yeah, eating meat is fine. Way we treat these animals, yeah, that's really important because that's a vibe thing. And I do like what Tristan's doing. I don't think going 100% carnivore though. I'll be honest, it's not for me. And I don't know if it's quote unquote right. That's just how I feel about it. I freaking like vegetables. I'm eating blueberries now
yeah,
all the time because it's the middle of summer in Canada and it's 18 hours of daylight.
wow. I love fruit myself. I love fruit
Yeah.
more than vegetables. And yeah, I think the carbs, whether it's milk or fruit or some kind of source, is important. But the reason why I went on that tangent after you brought up the elk antler is just talking about recovering from the vegan diet or even the vegetarian diet. Your product, I think, saved me because taking elk antler, I personally take 8 capsules a day, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
lot. But half pound to a pound of meat a day of red meat from a local farm, grass fed. I'll cycle bison, elk, venison, and it's a good carb source, rice, milk, and I'm thriving, and I really feel the boost. I think it's the trace minerals in the elk antler that are amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting. I did raw vegan, raw vegetarian, from roughly 2006 to 2008. It wasn't actually until I saw the show, like Food Matters, where I was in 2008, where I was going, man, oh man, like I don't even know what I'm doing. I was so confused, right? But I was nice and lean when I was 26 years old, 27 years old. I was nice and lean and like thought I looked good. But I look at some of the old pictures from when I was a raw vegan or a vegetarian, man. I look sick, looking back at it now. And sure, they choose whatever you want to choose, eat however you want to eat. But I'm telling you, it was the antler that did turn me around too. It gave me a whole new vitality. It gave me new energy levels. It was like, wow, like made me feel like a man again. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's what being vegetarian does to you. It sort of kind of puts a lid on your manhood. Nobody send me hate mail for saying that, but I think just getting that meat back in the diet, you're just going like, holy shit, you know, and the milk thing, right? Everybody getting on the raw milk, goat's milk, good cow's milk. I'll tell you, man, I'm drinking like 1.5 liters of that stuff a day. And, you know, I was doing goat kefir and or kefir, or whatever you want to call it. But as soon as I started drinking that goat milk again, I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 7 years old again. You know, felt freaking unbelievable, right? So the whole agenda is it has to be a transhumanism. If you change the whole body from going, you know, we take what we grew up on, meat, potatoes, milk, and all of a sudden you start giving it everything like, oh, here's leaves. Just eat leaves. We don't what happens after, you know, 40 years of that stuff, 50 years of that stuff. We don't even know yet.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. And you reminded me, I saw this meme where it was, you know, why bodybuilders feel so good after carb loading. And it was a SpongeBob with his arms in a rainbow, and it said glycogen underneath. Yeah, sure. Carbs are important. You know, I think cutting out an entire macronutrient like the carnivore diet just it doesn't make sense
Well,
physiology wise.
no, it doesn't. I mean, for me, you know, you know, I guess to give the listeners a bit of a context, I live in Regina, Saskatchewan, right? So if you look up Regina, Saskatchewan, I'm dead square in the middle of North America. Between us and Winnipeg is the dead square middle of North America. I'm living at the 50.5 latitude north, right? I get in the wintertime, I only get like 7, 8 hours of daylight. In the summertime, I'm getting 18 hours of daylight. In the summertime now, we've got berries and fruit and vegetables, and everything's just spawning naturally, right? So that's when I eat that stuff, right? And I load up on it. I love it. I load up on it. But in the wintertime, you know, it's a completely different ball game. Biohacking in a Canadian context is so much different than somebody who's in California, and it's really, and you guys have so much influence, you know, like you guys and the Texans, and you guys are just like, you guys run the biohacking industry and the health industry, and I got my Canadian friends following everything that a California person is doing, like even in the wintertime. I'm going, no, this, no, we don't need to eat these smoothies and this shit in the wintertime. What we need is we need meat, we need meat, we need, you know, whatever you can preserve from the fall, and you need sleep. You need darkness and sleep. That's, you're supposed to be sleep, cold, meat, whatever you save from the fall. Do that, right? It's completely different.
I like that. And if you can get some milk or honey, possibly add those in. And
Oh yeah,
one of my
milk, eggs, yeah.
Mhm. One of my mentors, Ray Pete, says that thyroid is more important in the winter than in the summer, which is counter to what people would think, especially in the biohacking space or whatever. But I take thyroid hormone every day, just you know, desiccated, like just like liver, and I feel great from it. You know, I think that's a great supplement slash food to use in the winter as like a biohack.
Yeah, I am gonna try that biohack in the winter. And you know, it's interesting because like, if you, my sister's a nurse, and I have friends that are nurses. They say that the hospitals and doctors' offices come like middle of January, February 1st, after it's been long and cold. People are just absolutely streaming into hospitals and doctors' offices with really sick. I don't have the statistics, but I'm pretty sure that most of the disease diagnosis comes in January and February in our country. I mean, it's it's really bad. We got a lack of doctors, the public care system, right? We got a lack of doctors, we got a lack of healthcare practitioners. The system's quite stressed. But I know it's our winters. We don't know how to survive winter. When I was a kid, right? We only had like these orange incandescent bulbs that we lived under, and 3 channels on TV, and then at 11 o'clock, none of the channels ran overnight, right? So you weren't up watching TV, and there's no such thing as PlayStation or any of that crap, right? So you actually lived in darkness, and because, you know, we were relatively poorer growing up, all you had was the food that you grew in your garden. Grocery stores weren't open. Well, they didn't open on Sundays here. You couldn't shop at night here. Like, you had like one window on Saturday, and you grab a whole bunch of stuff, and then you get everything else out of your garden. And I think it's modern lifestyle, man. It's just killing people up here. And the disease, you know, the MS rates are through the roof, and it's much different in a Canadian context. And I'm actually worried for Canadian people. I know people say, well, it's worse to live up in Canada. If you don't know how to do it, yeah, you're in big trouble up here unless you can figure it out, right? And that was sort of my survival instincts kicked in. I was like, okay, well, I need to learn how to survive winter, right? I see what all these biohackers are doing. What can I take from them and work using my own context, and how can I use my own environment to keep me alive? And that's what I've done, and that's where I'm trying to go with my own health, is trying to be able to match my seasons and try to survive. I feel like I'm surviving up here. I feel like you guys down south, like in Hawaii and whatnot, everybody's just, people are thriving, and I'm like holding on for dear life up here.
You're doing great. Yeah. No, you're thriving. Yeah. No, I love all the points that you made. I think about people with all the windows shut, in the winter, like where you live, and there's no beneficial frequencies getting through that glass, right? And then meanwhile, their face is glued to a screen
Oh yeah.
all day long. And so they're cutting out all the beneficial frequencies, and then they're adding in all these detrimental frequencies. That's probably like a big part of the problem, or most of it, right?
Well, for sure. I mean, because in the summertime, there's so much moisture here. We live in like a high plains desert type of environment. There's no humidity here in the winter, so you're chronically dried out. Your battery is chronically drained. It's almost impossible to do any grounding or build up your negative electron. And it's a phone in your face. It's sugar candies. Everybody's bringing the Christmas party gifts to work and eating all the chocolate and shit like that. You wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. The lights are on, and I don't know, man. I really don't know how long people are going to stay well up here. Like, I almost feel like there's like a disease epidemic coming to Canada within the next 15 to 20 years, and we might wake up then, but it's going to happen up here. There's just no way, because people see what I do and people think I'm crazy. People think I'm fucking crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just trying to survive this in this context, right? So mark my words, 20 years, Canada, they'll be like, and then another northern country's going to be, there's an epidemic of disease and we don't know why.
Yeah, in the depopulation thing, I mean, you look up Bill Gates depopulation, just a ton of videos will come up of out of his mouth saying, if we succeed, then we can lower the world's population by X% or whatever with vaccinations and all these things, healthcare. So there's definitely a plan, based upon the false pretense that there's too many people on the planet, right? And so we have vaccinations, we have all of these things that we're talking about. That's I think there will be like an exodus off the planet, right? We're probably coming up to that pretty soon.
Yeah, it does feel like we're coming to a head, a collision course. I don't know if you've watched any of the Diehold Foundation stuff by Douglas B. Vaught. Now that is some thought-provoking stuff. And the first person to bring that up was actually Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers, who does the Space Weather Report every morning. He brought up that Douglas B. Vaught. Really interested me in his theories of where Earth is headed and what happens in the event of a supernova or a micronova, and can we predict supernovas or micronovas, and what happens, right? So I think we are coming to a head where something is going to happen. I honestly feel like most of humanity, most people on the planet, are under some form of mind control. And I don't want to say that it's like a full on mind control device, but it's like a function, right? So you take the mind control function, and mind control function mind control is a function of the television, of the news, of the car advertising, of the advertising on Snapchat. And it's like, it's the foods and anything that has money pushed behind it. It's kind of like it's this mind control. So they want to keep you in this box and keep you in this space. Useless eaters. I remember that term, what they called us. They called us common human beings, useless eaters, right? We're cogs in the machine. We wake up, work in the factory, make things to benefit rich people, and then go home and be entertained by what's on television, right? And I saw that stuff when I was a kid. I saw the programming very early when I was a kid, and I would look at adults and watch them watch TV and go, why are you so enthralled by this? This is nonsense. Like Three's Company. I'd watch people watch Three's Company, and I'm going, this is nonsense. What the hell is going on here? Why are these people so enthralled by this? Or I'd go to church, right? I went to a Catholic school. I was Anglican growing up, but I would go to this church, and I would I would watch all these people be so mean and so nasty to each other, and just and not loving, and on Sunday everything was fine. They're perfect and they're holier than thou, and they could walk around and do no wrong, right? So I had this like weird perspective when I was a kid. I was an outsider watching this movie we called life, right? And I was able to pick up on the mind control system. I knew it existed when I was a kid. I just didn't know how to frame it, because when you grow up in Saskatchewan in the middle of nowhere, there's really nobody else like you around because there's nobody here. That makes
I
any
can
sense.
relate. I was an observer growing up. I was just quiet and I was watching and I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of us, right? A lot of more than I'd probably say three-quarters of the people that are listening to this right now are the same thing. You become an like suspicious observers. That was the best name that Davidson ever came up with that. And that's what we are. That's kind of what we are, guys like you and I. We're suspicious observers. I'm kind of suspicious of everything that's thrown at me. But the way I test it is not through give me fact or give me this person saying that. It's usually through my gut, right? Like it's an intuitive feeling. And I think people say, well, what's right, what's wrong, what should I do, this and that. Well, what does your gut tell you? We were given this gut, gut full of, what is it? I don't even know how many neurons are actually in the gut. I don't know if anybody knows how many neurons are in the gut, but you got a second brain down there, right? When you feel love, you meet a woman or a man or whatever, you feel that feeling down there, down in your stomach, right? That's the neurons in your gut. That's your friggin' brain. And you go, well, I don't know if I like this person. Yeah, you do, because if you could listen to your gut, that feeling is your brain connecting with their brain in their gut. It's all energy exchange. And that's how you discern what's bullshit or what's not, is usually through your gut. So you need to have a healthy gut microbiome. You got to take care
Yeah,
of your gut to be able to think.
I've been following all your stuff on the gut, and it's really fascinating. I've known about glyphosate for years, but all the stuff that you're posting about it, and my big rabbit hole is endotoxin and these gram-negative bacteria that they kick off this lipopolysaccharide that's super toxic and
Hmm.
makes alcohol more toxic, poisons the liver, messes up the thyroid, just everything.
And so, how
And
are these endotoxins getting into our systems? What's
I,
the major source?
from what I understand, it's a lot of the wrong, like, or excess of fiber. So basically, like the vegan diet.
Hmm.
Like I used to eat like giant salads for dinner for like 4 or 5 years, and that really screwed up my gut. And so I've been using a lot of gelatin, like a lot of bone
Hmm.
broth every day, and I think that's making a huge difference.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, bone broth is huge. I don't know. I'm of the opinion that gut health is right now in my life. That's number one. I'm always thinking about when I dug down into the research. I started seeing how the gut microbes work, what kind of colonies are in there, what happens when they change. What disease is linked to what bacteria. What disease is linked to a lack of certain bacteria. So, in my research that I've done, reading other people's research and other people's work, I really believe that the gut is so misunderstood and so understudied, but so critical. Absolutely critical that you got a happy bacteria. People say, well, everybody's bacteria is different. Well, yeah, good. Well, obviously, because everybody lives in a different environment. But obviously, if you wipe out a total species of microbiome, bacteria that you need, you're going to be in some kind of trouble, right? That article I just posted this morning about fibromyalgia. They think that fibromyalgia might actually start in the gut. Oh, no, really? You don't think? Oh, Alzheimer's might be start in the gut. Oh, no, really? You don't think? Like, it just doesn't, it's not that complicated. We try to overcomplicate and try to look for these complex answers, right? But fix the gut. I tell you what, if fix the gut, and you're probably going to fix 90% of your health problems.
I fully agree. Yeah, I highly recommend people go back and listen to my interview with Kiran Krishnan. He started the company Just Thrive, and there's a lot of spore-based probiotics out there, but basically it's 4 strains, and they're called influencer strains. So these 4 will go in and influence the entire microbiome to kind of terraform it
Yeah, that's
and make it
beautiful.
more balanced. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, they're an alternative to antibiotics, which can cause some harm. So you made me think when you were talking about the Die Hard Foundation, global cooling is what we're going into, right? Because I just interviewed the Magnetico guy, Dean Bonley, and he went on like a 15-minute rant on how global warming is a hoax and it's all CGI. And the Die Hard Foundation talks about how we're going into kind of an ice age, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what they do. That's what most of the news that I read and most of the scientists that I read. Well, okay, I'll start with this. When I was a kid, my father took me to a place called Smashed In Head Buffalo Jump. It was in Alberta. We stood on the edge of the Smashed In Head Buffalo Jump. This is where the native tribes would drive bison off, and they would all die to their death. They run with the herd and die over the cliff, right? They'd fall off. My dad said, never run with the herd. He goes, as soon as you start running with the herd, you're running over this cliff, you're going to die. He goes, if you can think for yourself, you run to the side and you figure it out. The majority tends to be wrong. He said, it's not all the time, but he tends to be wrong. And that's what we're facing with this whole climate thing. Okay. Like the climate is changing. That's we all see it. We all know it's happening, but I think it's cooling. Right? When the sun goes quiet, we know that sunspot activity is linked to temperature on planet Earth. Sunspot activity or lack thereof is linked to volcanoes or underwater vents, right? So we've had more volcanoes erupting in the last 2 years than we've had in a very long time. People say, well, the CO2 keeps going up. Well, no shit. Because the sun is going quiet, these volcanoes are acting up, and yeah, there's more CO2. CO2 makes up 0.04% of the atmosphere. You're telling me that that's responsible? The only thing that these people can do is tax carbon, because it's the only thing that we all need and we all use. They can't tax water, because if they tax water, then they're Nazis. But if they can tax carbon, that's fine, right? Oh, well, I have to get to work. What they're doing is they're putting limits on the way people's mobility. So like if you live in Vancouver, Canada, and you want to drive to Calgary, well, you got to fill up your car. It's almost $2 a liter. Well, it's $1.03 here, right? So you've limited a population from being able to be mobile. And they're using that agenda. It's all part of the Agenda 21, all that other crap. But I honestly believe, from what I've read, that we're getting colder, and that's not good either, right? Warming's bad, cold's bad. It always happens. It's about adaptation. That's what we need to focus on. Okay, the climate's changing. There's not much we can do to stop it, including driving electric cars ain't going to fix it. When I have all my neighbors over here plugging in their, I got a family get together at my house. Hey, Dave, do you have 10 extension cords that we can plug our cars in with? It's like, what? People haven't even thought this electric car thing through. Oh yeah, okay, no, I'll just run 10 extension cords out to everybody's car here, and I'll watch my power meter go round and around and around and around and around, right? It's just all nonsense, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember reading an article about how they discovered the biggest lithium mine in Afghanistan, and right after we invaded. Oh, what a
Oh no, I never heard
coincidence.
that. Oh,
Yeah, so
a war for business, not a war for human rights? Huh? Imagine that.
yeah, it's crazy. And then there's also some stuff I've read about petroleum and how that's actually they say, oh, we're running out of it, and
No,
that's
it's
actually
abiotic.
yeah.
Yeah, there's like credible scientists that are saying this stuff is abiotic. They're going back to old wells, and they're finding that these reservoirs are full again, right? And they keep making it, right? Like that's really cool, because I thought it was dinosaurs. It's not dinosaurs, right? We all know it's not dinosaurs. If you believe it's dinosaurs, then I don't know. You got to go back to the school of enlightenment, of I don't know, whatever. But they're going back to these old oil wells, and they're full again. They're going, what the hell's going on here? It's just these oil wells, these oil reserves are replenishing themselves, but we make oil such a bad thing. And it's scary, especially for Western Canada, man. A lot of the jobs here rely on oil. And I'm going, and some of the biggest resistance to, I think, to the control system are people who live in Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, and Manitoba. People that live in Western Canada. We're like the old time Western style people. Like we know when somebody rolls to town and they're a bullshitter, we can pick up that they're a bullshitter, right? And so everybody's trying. It's very tough, right? Yes, we need clean environment. We need to fix pollution and stuff like that. But it's a huge risk to the economy of Western Canada and the good people that live here. And not driving electric cars ain't going to stop the changing climate. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I think that's another one of the misdirects that humanity has been put on. It's alternative energy. Instead of gas, it's electric. But no, I mean, Stan Meyer, that was killed, he invented the water car, right? And he
Yeah.
rode his car, I think, across the whole US just on ocean water. So
Well, yeah, there was a guy in out of, I think he was out of Winnipeg in the 50s or 60s. I can't remember, but he created a carburetor that allowed him to drive from Vancouver to Winnipeg on one tank of gas, right? So if I ran the world, if I ran everything, this is what I would do. I would release, people need to stop complaining about climate change, do this stuff. They need to start forcing our governments to release the patents. It's in the patents that are secret in the United States government and within the Canadian government and within the British government. Those patents that they have top secret under, those will save the planet. That's what people need to do. You need to get pissed off at your politicians and say, release the damn technologies. Because you and I know that free energy exists. If you don't think free energy exists, fix your brain, because it does. We know it does. Everybody knows it does. Go to Contact in the Desert. Talk to one of those guys. They're not going to say it publicly. They're not going to tell you what they've seen, but it exists. I know people who have seen free energy at work. It exists. We need to tell our governments that we want the patents released in order to save the planet. That's how we do it. It's all there already. I don't know why people aren't thinking of this.
Yeah, the patents are like being held in a prison almost. They're like prisoners.
For sure they are. Well, yeah, because you can't make, if it's free energy, you can't make, well, we obviously know you can't make money on it, but that's where people need to go. You need to start a campaign to release those patents. That's how you save the planet from climate change. Or let's put it this way, climate adaptation. That's the goal, is climate adaptation. Climate change, we run around in fear of this big thing that's going to crush us and kill us. But nobody goes, well, what do we need to do? Oh, we need to adapt to the change, right? So I don't know, it's all crazy. But yeah, free energy exists.
I love it. Have you looked into George Green's stuff? I think I found him back in like 07 or something.
I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, kind of bigger guy, bald, but there was a video on Project Camelot where there was like this motor and they didn't touch each other, but it's just perpetual kind of spinning.
Just using magnets.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so simple. Did you ever hear about the guy? You ever hear about the guy who he basically he took a copper wire and he wrapped it around quartz crystal. He sent energy into the one side of the wire, and out the other end was more. So it was net. It was actually increasing in energy output from the input just by being a copper wire wrapped around a quartz crystal.
Wow, I think that's called over unity. I looked into this stuff years ago.
Yeah. Like that's sure, that's primitive, but it's far more advanced than that, and it's sad because it feels like sometimes it all, when you know this stuff, it feels like you're being kept captive. It feels like a prison planet. I remember when I first saw Alex Jones call it a prison planet. I'm like, who is this nut job, right? He's calling this a prison planet, but the more you know and the more you learn, the more you go, damn it, we are living in the prison. Our politicians, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Everybody who's qualified and talented doesn't want to run for politics because it's so gross and so much mudslinging and so, it's all dirt and gossip. So why would you run for it? That's how you keep
pedophilia.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, that's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about too. I mean, I'll tell you what, this pedophilia thing that's going on, in my opinion, that's the biggest problem on planet Earth. Anytime a child is violated, there's nothing worse that you could ever do. If I could stop anything on the planet right now, it would be child trafficking and sex trafficking and pedophilia, man. It's like, these people that are reporting on it and researching it, they're always, people are always seeking to discredit them and to say that, oh, it's all lies and all fake and all this bullshit. But it's not. I know people who have seen it. I know people who have been abused in foster homes and things like that. It's real, and we're putting the blinders onto it. The Pizzagate, like they made this like some big stupid conspiracy. The pizza term was thought to, you're calling an underage, prostitute a pizza, right? It's a code word, right? Okay, Pizzagate, whatever, pizza parlor, but that doesn't mean that there isn't child trafficking. So the way they combated, the way the people that do this, the satanic beasts that run that thing, the way they did that is they, looks like their cover's blown a little bit, so they run all these psyops on everyone, and it gets everybody going, oh, Pizzagate, well, you're an idiot. No, son, if you actually do some research and read Sarah Westall, Business Game Changers. She had a guy on there. He was a New York detective. He was the first detective that, looking into child sex trafficking and pedophilia in New York. I don't remember his name. Business Game Changers, Sarah Westall. That's where you're going to find it. But he said it was rampant in New York, and he actually said one of the worst places on earth, in the United States, is actually Minnesota. I had no idea. He was saying Minnesota is a really bad place for that. And so you listen to these people who actually worked in these industries and worked in, as a detective trying to stop this kind of stuff. Man, it is rampant, and it's sad, but they use it for control. And it's, I've heard so much stuff. I don't want to get into that, but that's probably the biggest problem that we have. And we got to wake ourselves up to this stuff and stop this.
I fully agree. And for me, I think just seeing like a TED talk where they're trying to normalize it, that's
Well,
kind of all I need to see. And there's even like the Snapchat filters, like age has no number or whatever. All these like different things they're like putting into the consciousness, like forcing it.
well, yeah, they were trying to say that pedophilia, the man boy love association or whatever you want to call it, is like it's like a sexual orientation. Like,
Yeah.
wow, man, like talk about, it's just the most insane thing that you could ever imagine. Like a normal human being doesn't go, yeah, that's normal. Watching a 28-year-old man walking around with a 13-year-old girlfriend, yeah, that's normal. It's not,
Yeah.
and it needs to end. And I don't know if anybody believes that that's okay. Never ever come near me or talk to me. I don't want anything to do with you, but I will report you.
Yeah. I always think of that quote, the greatest trick that Satan ever played was to convince the world that he doesn't exist, right? Because for years I imagine that it didn't, right? Because people worship that, and it's just a fact. And when you see stuff like that that's going on, it's just apparent, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. The world is a crazy, crazy, crazy place.
which is why it's so important on a lighter note for us to be healthy and strong and happy and have strong community and support each other. I have chickens here, and I give my neighbors eggs, and I give my family eggs, and just learning how to produce our own food from animal agriculture. That's like one of my solutions, and just getting our brain back online.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, which is really interesting. I see the movement happening around the world in California and other places about, the small sustainable agriculture, doing everything your own. It's we do that. We've been doing that here forever, right? Like we grew up gardening and raising our own food. I have family that raise cattle and whatnot. It's just where we live, right? That's just what we do. Everybody has gardens. Most people grew up around here, grew up in a small town, moved to the big city, but that's something second nature to us. So it's cool to see that. That's what kept us alive, was our own local agriculture, right? When I was a kid, man, I was out in the garden every single day, and you know, the problem is, if you live in a large population centers, it's not normal. Like kids, like I think kids born these days, like think food comes from grocery stores, right? I don't even know if they know some of them know what a farm is, right?
Yeah, that's the scary thing about the fruitarian diet. I see people, just going to the grocery store and getting all these different types of melons and just, abundance of whatever fruit you want to buy, but it's they're not picking it from trees, they're getting it from their diet's based on the grocery store.
Yeah,
So,
it's really strange. I have a friend, an old friend who, kind of at the time when I started Vigor Lifestyles, she went, I went in the meat direction. We were both kind of, raw vegetarian, raw vegan at the same time. And then, I kind of went this way and she went that way. She's been fruitarian for a very long time. And I know she won't be listening to this program. So I know that she has major health complications as a result. And um, she won't change. She refuses to change. It's like somehow she thinks that she's benefiting the animals on the planet, that the animals are somehow happy that she's chosen this lifestyle, right? Well, you know what? I tell you what, if I'm a cow, I'm already under the understanding of why I'm here, right? I'm not here to run around and, I heard the other day somebody say, well, we should let all the cows go. Let's let all the cows go. So what? You want 150,000 wolves? running around Saskatchewan, like eating your dogs and eating your cats. Like it's just, it's nonsense. And I think that whole fruit thing, it's right. It's it's a candy for them. And they could do this, the durian fruit all day long. Like, oh yeah, great. It's, man, oh man, you want to help those people. You want to say, look, you want to shake them, like wake up. But
I
they
think
have,
it's lack of protein and fat soluble vitamins. That's like the biggest thing with that diet.
well, yeah, I don't even, like, what nutrition are you getting out of it? Like, tell me one thing that is optimal about a fruitarian diet.
Like fructose in the summer, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, you're all jacked up for, yeah, you can go out and party all night and then crash the next day, right? That's
Yeah, great points. I made a note here from this is like probably 15 minutes back. What are your thoughts on red light therapy? Because you were saying the winters are harsh where you live, and I know there's so much, flack on the flicker and all this stuff, but I've super benefited from using red light therapy. Um, Mostly, I in the winter kind of got me through this last winter when it was snowing here. But do you use it? Do you like it? Do you recommend it for people where you live?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I do. If we're talking red light, we're talking infrared heat and whatnot. I have a hot tub that kind of gets me through the winter time. I'm telling you what, when you get outside and you get in the hot tub, that's huge. I use those big red bulbs, big red incandescent heat lamps. I love those, right? I know I'm getting the full spectrum. There's no spectrum isolation. I'm kind of I love the red light devices. They're really cool. To me, I can't wrap my mind around the isolation of frequencies unless it's a therapeutic thing, right? So that's why I choose all these. You can see in the background, the listeners can't see it, but you can see in the background, I love using those red lights. I love having it all in my space and feel like the heat from it and get the red light. I love it. I couldn't survive winter without it. Saunas, hot tubs, red lights. I think it's good. The flicker, yeah, I mean, I am I am concerned about the flicker. Like, I'm very sensitive to things. I'm sensitive to EMFs. I'm sensitive to like fluorescent lighting and things that do have flicker in it. And TVs. That's why I don't like watching TV. But yeah, it's a tad of a concern to me. I'm sure they can be engineered to be completely flicker free. I mean, little DC converter or whatever you want to do. But it's I love it, man. Everybody should be doing red light therapy. It'll be in 15 years it'll be like you're gonna have a red light room. It'll be normal, right? All the new homes will have these float pods and red light rooms.
Yeah, I think that's where some of the devices. I think people get crazy with the devices in the biohacking world, like $11,000 easy structured water inhalation device. I think that's like unnecessary, but
Oh man, I look at that stuff. I used to be so convinced that that was the way to go on it, but you didn't know really. You didn't really think about nature and how it actually works. It was like, yeah, I need this device and that device. That's one of the things I don't like about the biohacking industry is like they think that they need these devices to go and recreate nature. I get it for therapeutic. If you're going or gone or far gone, and you need to get yourself quickly back into it, some of these devices can be very useful. But for me, man, I'm just attracted to being outdoors. Like, I just want to lay outside all day, every day, with no clothes on. That's all I want to do, right? That's my red light and blue light therapy. People are like, well, blue light there. I thought you said blue light's bad. Yeah, well, it's noon. I want the blue light. What the hell? People don't know, man. This is another thing that should be taught in school. Why this is so hard is such a hard concept to grasp, right? That we need to be outside, barefoot on the ground. Everybody's always looking for a device. You get hundreds of questions a day about this stuff. I get questions about this, not as much as you, but sometimes I just say, well, why don't you just go outside? Just go hang out outside. Well, am I going to get any red light out there? It's like, wow, did you take physics in school or not? You know, that's my
yeah, and
thoughts
I
on
think
red light.
there's I love it. I think there's some complexity. Like I interviewed Dave Stetzer, he's in Wisconsin,
Hmm.
this dirty electricity guy, and he was talking about prostate cancer and farmers that were barefoot on the earth, and they had prostate cancers through the roof. I got to put that clip on my Instagram because
Oh,
it was
interesting.
fascinating, and it was like definitive that was causing it being barefoot on the earth. But if they were in the Himalayas, it'd be a different story.
Hmm.
But just being in that high non-native EMF environment barefoot. So there is complexity for sure.
Oh, for sure
And
there is. Yeah. I mean, if you think about like people, so it is biohacking, right? And when I think about where I'm going to get my exposure, obviously I've got a meter, I've got a spot in my yard that I know that I'm not getting any kind of frequencies. It's like zero. It's like this little 6 foot by 6 foot spot. That's where I lay in the sun, grounded. Right. If I move closer to the power line, I know exactly where I can't, how close I can or cannot go. I know where my where the Wi-Fi, all the neighbors' Wi-Fi's won't reach, and those kinds of things, right? It is very complex, and it's a lot for people to take in. But that's why they need people like you and people like me and all of the people that are like us to kind of to show a bit of a guide, kind of guide them to try to help them say, here's how you navigate this crazy world. You know, you're a teacher by nature. I'm a teacher by nature. That's kind of what we do. We're educators. We want to help people, right? Biggest thing, the biggest barrier for people to get introduced or interested in this stuff is they think it's so much more complex than it needs to be, or they need to have this person's device. Like biohacking on a budget, it can be done, right? You don't have to be some rich transhumanist, trying to put your soul into a machine, right? You just need to follow the right advice and try to pick up a few tips along the way. And it's a process, man. I'm 10 years into this and I'm still learning.
I agree. Yeah, and I always tell people start somewhere, right? Especially with like drinking water. Like I'm still blown away when people say I'm drinking tap. What do
Oh
you
yeah.
recommend? It's like, whoa.
Yeah, this dude told me the other day that he's drinking like 8 liters, 9 liters of tap water a day. And it said he wasn't feeling good. I'm like, dude, you know how much pharmaceutical crap is in there? Like, great, yeah. Put a filter on your shower in it, water your grass with it. But man, don't be drinking that stuff. That's nuts. Man, he's like, really? I should be drinking bottled spring water? Well, yeah, man. But yeah, I can't fault him. He just didn't know. He's not exposed to it. His reality matrix didn't bring him into the spot where he could actually sense that information, right? It took him
Yeah.
years to finally contact me and say, I got this issue. And why do I have a problem? And I thought his problem right away, 8 liters of water, and he started eating less meat. So figured out.
Jeez. I used to teach, I was a substitute teacher, and there was this other sub, and he was a very smart, like electrician guy, like engineer type, and just very science minded. But he was very proud that for environmental reasons, he drank tap water
Oh,
as his primary source of drinking water. And I was trying to explain to him, the lead and the hydrofluorosilicic acid and the bromine, just all of the chemical cocktail that extracts lead from the pipes
hmm.
and just all the pharmaceuticals. And I could just see a glaze in his eyes. I mean, it's like
But
it's
you
the
didn't want to
tap
hear it.
water glaze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the hardest things. One of the hardest things to do is to realize that you're doing something terribly wrong. It's that, everybody's had that moment where it's like you've been doing along, you've been running around in your little reality matrix, and all of a sudden, boom, something hits you. It's like a choice. Am I going to believe this shit, or am I going to resist and go along being comfortable, right? I remember when I was a young man, I was in the hockey dressing room, and this was after the game, and we were talking about politics or something like that, and this one guy across the room just says to me, he goes, Dave, you're a lost soul. And I was like, whoa, whew, okay. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he just looked at me. He's like, dude, you're a lost soul. And I really respected him. He did really well in the investment industry. He was, 60 years old, still playing hockey, great shape. Really looked up to the guy. And when he said that to me, it just kind of rocked my world. And it was like, I knew right there, it was like a choice to accept what he said and realize that he's probably right, or resist it and continue to walk down a stupid path for a lot longer. Right. And that's the thing when you tell somebody that, tap, that's the hardest part about this, doing what we do, is telling somebody that, look, what you're doing is insane, and what you're doing needs to stop if you want to save yourself, because we've tested it. That's what the biohackers do. We've made ourselves guinea pigs and lab test animals to figure out what works and what doesn't work, right? And we're still doing it. Like you look at like some of the other biohackers, man, I commend them for putting themselves through what they do, but you have to look yourself in the mirror at some point and go, holy shit, I'm wrong. It's okay to say you're wrong. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be vegan and then go, man, that was stupid. And then start eating meat. It's okay. That's my advice for people. Just, you want to get slapped in the face with truth. You want to, that those are the best moments, man. When somebody can just take you and jolt you from your reality and go, "Hey, wake up." That's the best thing that can happen to you. Or you fuck up miserably and go, "Wow, that was stupid," right? I like screwing up. I like making mistakes. I like people shaking my reality, saying something to me that kind of rocks me from my own reality matrix. That's what I want that. And that's why I hang out with cool people, because the chances are it's going to happen. If you hang out with good, smart, cool people, they're going to wake you up from something. That's what life's all about, man.
Tough love, right? It's a form of tough love.
Well, it's still love, right? Are you? I c- the other day I had a young man, was doing and saying some stuff in a certain way, and I could see that it was, he had goals and dreams and aspirations, and I could see that it was his thinking was probably holding him back. And so I had to make a decision: do I rock this guy's world and throw reality in his face, and show him how his thinking is likely hurting him and holding him back, or do I just walk away, let him be himself, and I rocked his world. And a few days later, he came back and he's just like, "Holy man, that talk that we just had, that changed my life." He goes, "I'm looking at everything differently now, and I had no idea that I was running this program and all this stuff." And he's like, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you." And all I did was just tell him the damn truth, tell him what I think, because I could see myself, my younger self in him, right? And it's a choice. Do you rock somebody's world? Do you choose to be rocked? It's a crazy life, but that's all we're trying to do, is trying to help people, trying to rock people into their true selves, and their true self is love.
I love it. And you introduced me to the minister Joel Olsteen, and just listening to something positive, right? It doesn't have to be him, but just some kind of positive programming. Because even the people like us that are trying to help people, we need to continually have these positive inputs, right? Like to compliment people more and encourage people more. All these things.
Well, yeah, because we are a product of what we're exposed to. It doesn't matter what you're exposed to. It doesn't matter what program you want to run. You want to love hockey and your whole life be hockey, then just watch hockey and read the hockey news, and that's cool, and be who you want. Me, I'm always trying to be a little bit better. I'm trying to be a little bit better for me. I'm trying to think better for me. But I know that if I can improve myself, I can benefit the people around me, and that's really what I want to do. I want to give. I know that the more I give is the more I get. And listening to Joel Osteen, people say, "Oh, you're listening to a Christian preacher," and "Oh, yeah, blah blah blah." Like atheism is like the only way now, right? Like you have to be. If you're not atheist, you're a dummy. So it's like, no, it's all cool. It's all good. I'm going to listen to a Joel Osteen. He's non-denominational. He's a Christian. He does read excerpts, but he talks about love. He talks about forgiveness. He talks about compassion. He talks about letting go of the negative stuff that happens in your life and allowing the positive stuff. I love listening to Joel Osteen, and I'm completely unapologetic for it. I've tried to introduce other people to it, and they have resistance with it. Awesome. It's not for you. That's cool. Well, I want to keep listening because I like it. I have it on in my car. It's Sirius satellite radio, right? Channel 128. I'm listening to it all the time. And people in my life who don't know that I'm listening to Joel Osteen are noticing changes. They're saying, you're even more positive. You're nicer, and you're more accepting and open. And Joel Osteen's a huge valuable tool if you feel stuck and you think that you're not being a good person. I don't know. It's worth a shot.
Yeah, I agree. On YouTube, that all of his stuff, you can just search him on YouTube, and it's great. It's a great thing to start the day with. Um, Kind of a huge tangent, but the weakening Earth's magnetic field. This is something I really wanted to pick your brain on, because Dr. Dean Bonley of Magnetico talks a lot about that, and how he thinks that as we're heading towards a pole shift, a pole reversal, that midday you're going to see people taking naps because our battery is going to be discharged faster, because the Gauss of the Earth is less than zero point 0.5 and it's approaching zero.
Oh, that's
You have thoughts on that? Or
well. That's new. That like I do have a Magnetico. I sleep on a 20 Gauss Magnetico. Underneath, I got an 8-inch foam mattress, no coils, and so I mean I sleep amazing every night. It's amazing when you have a Magnetico. You read the reviews, you're like, "Oh, I don't know if I should get it." Then you get it, and you sleep one night on it. You lay down, and you're just like out like a light. Like instant anesthesia is what it is. Uh, I hadn't heard about him and his thoughts about the magnetic poles changing or reversing, and people needing to take a nap in the afternoon. But that makes sense. It makes sense. Me, I'm never lethargic or tired in the afternoon. My wife, she's currently pregnant. She is. She needs extra sleep, but she's also sleeping on a magnetico. What actually is going to happen with the magnetic pole reversal and change? I don't even I don't know if anybody even really knows. Is like, what did you think about Bondley's ideas?
Well, he was, I think he'll be the first to say he doesn't know when it's going to happen, but I think we're overdue, and so it could be 5 years from now, it could be 100 years from now, but we're going to experience some major earth changes. My friend actually on Instagram, she's been posting a lot about the earthquakes in California. I don't know if you follow that, but all along the fault line there's been just the past week like record number actually of earthquakes.
Holy man, I know I hadn't heard anything about that, but
Yeah, it's kind
it
of scary.
well, it is scary, yeah. And I live within you know, in terms of a volcanic stone's throw. I live a stone's throw from Yellowstone, right? And there's always talk, oh, Yellowstone's going to pop and this and that. Like when Mount St. Helens erupted back in 1979, or I think it was March 1980. I can't remember. I think it was the month I was born. But my parents said the eruption from Mount St. Helens, it covered their house in ash in Regina, Saskatchewan. She said everybody's cars and everybody's homes were covered in ash from Mount St. Helens in Washington. From Washington, that's 3 provinces over. That's several thousand kilometers away, right? So I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that one of the reasons why I do use a magnetico and why I'm worried about the magnetic field is because I live over top of potash and oil and natural gas deposits, and we know that potash and oil and natural gas disrupt the I don't know how to say we'll say the flow of magnetic field to the surface here. So I have to use it. I'm 40 years old. I still play hockey at a high level. I'm still physically active. I feel really good.
Play golf.
Play golf. I love golf's my favorite. But the problem with golf is, of course, all the shit that they spray on the courses, right? Like it's not good. That's probably out of anything that I do, golf's probably the worst because of the chemicals that are sprayed on the grass. But yeah, man, I think
Glyphosate?
yeah, they use glyphosate, but they're using other things, copper sulfate and things like that, like
Whoa.
all types of all types of interesting concoctions that don't do anything good for any human being but make grass look really great. I know, guys. It's actually I've actually seen people get sick. So you hit your ball into the green, right? It leaves a mark, right? You fix your ball mark, you mark your ball, you pick the ball up, and you got to clean your ball, right? So I've seen lots of people like grab the ball and lick it clean, and then they get sick afterwards. Like I know a couple guys who got pretty sick after licking a golf ball that hit a green, right? So you're going, what is on this stuff, right? It's
Whoa.
not good. It's not good,
That's wild.
but but I still love the game. It's fun to watch that little white ball fly through the air.
It seems like a good coordination. My big thing is rock climbing and just like bouldering without a rope and just climbing around rocks playing. We all have to find our outdoor activity, right? That
Yeah.
we like.
Well, golfing's really hard. If you want to be good at it, I'm about a 5 handicap, which is decent. I'm in like the top, I don't know, it's like 2 or 3% of golfers in the world that has a handicap of 5 and lower, which means I typically shoot 5 over par, or based on the index, to 10 over par. It's a very hard game, and to be able to swing that club as fast as you can, and make perfect contact at perfect timing, not hurt yourself, and make it go straight is almost impossible. So one of the things that I'm actually going to get into is functional patterns. I'm not getting into some of the philosophy, and Naughty, he's a cool guy. He's interesting. I think he's interesting. He's fun to follow. But some of that movement stuff, I could see how that would translate into the golf swing really well, and most sports, I think.
Yeah, I think you saw my recent transition. I used to do deadlifts and all this crazy weightlifting, and I did gain benefit, but I think my back suffered a little bit, especially the lumbar part of my spine. So recently I got into John Vakish's X3 bar, and I've been feeling it. I mean, that thing rocks me in under 10 minutes. So it's just resistance bands
Yeah,
basically. So there's not a lot of you can't really mess up your joints as much as you could with free weights, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, like I like using movement. I like, battle ropes. I like climbing on things, jungle gyms. I like playing frisbee and that stuff. But I actually got a Bowflex in my garage, which is kind of like my man cave. And people like, everybody kind of laughs, right? Everybody saw the Bowflex infomercials. It's this guy who's like incredibly ripped and clearly was taking growth hormone and steroids to look like that, right? But
He was on elk antlers.
yeah, he was. I'd love to say that. But like you don't get hurt on this stuff. And I think as you age, you really need to find exercises that don't hurt you. Like I'm 39 years old. I have to be very careful about hurting myself. I got a kid on the way. I got 3 jobs to worry about. I got a new company that I'm starting, and it's like I can't do anything that puts me on the couch for an extended period of time. So the resistance bands, functional patterns, movement, MoveNat. I like all that stuff. That heavy weightlifting, yeah, if you're going to compete and that's what you want to do, but if you don't really know what you're doing, it can be very, very dangerous because the body is really strong. Like people are stronger than they know, and you get in there and you start moving weight that you think you can weigh, that you can move, and you move it in one wrong subtle way, you're going to be really hurt, right? Like unless you want to take.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Turn your neck once and you screw up everything.
Yeah.
One thing that's really changed my life was the lumbar spinal decompression, like the home track
Yes.
device. And Christine Hydra sells a little adapter, so you hook it up to a air compressor, and you choose the PSI and start at 30 in just 2 minutes. And it's a stretcher. You strap yourself in at the torso. Just once a day. That's been unbelievable. Just because it takes the pressure out of the discs, which is really nice. So
yeah, like I have a cousin who's a chiropractor in Kelowna, British Columbia, and he's a NUCA practitioner, right? So he's working on the little bone in there that kind of keeps the head aligned over top of the spine. And he's got this like hanging device where you hang from your hips. I can't remember what he called it. He's got all these devices all over his place, but you hang from there and you can, when you do that, you just hear like a pop, 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 pop of your spine. And it's just like, I don't know what chemical is being released when that happens, but it's like an orgasm if it's good enough,
All of the LSD that you took when in your teens.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, to be honest with you, I've never taken LSD. I've never tried it.
Never would have thought. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I'm sure, it's really interesting. Like the psychedelics, man, I think there's a huge advantage to using them therapeutically. And I'm really excited to see what happens. Colorado just legalizing it. That's fantastic, or decriminalizing. But, I've used
Rick Doblin and MAPS.
Yeah. Like I've used, magic mushrooms and I've microdosed them and I come out on the other side as feeling like a different person at times. Right. And I know people that are using DMT or Ibogaine or things like that, and they're coming out as different people spiritually. So I'm really excited. I think, cannabis is the new thing in Canada. It's legalized now, and we're going to have edibles and all these oils and stuff like that. It's really cool, man. It's a really cool Wild West going on in Canada. The green rush is happening in Canada, and lots of cool innovations. But I'm really excited to see what happens when the psychedelics and all of those things start getting decriminalized, and what we can do with them and how we can help people. I think it's nature, right? It's nature. We're designed by nature. We're designed by God to use nature in order to heal and balance ourselves. And I think the establishment, they took those things away from us at a time when people were about to have a consciousness revolution, right? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a healing and consciousness revolution, which hasn't quite happened yet. Some people might say that it's already happened, but it hasn't happened. And we're on the cusp of it. And we can do it. We can get through all this shit. We can make the world a better place by opening our minds and learning the truth and accepting the truth and puking out all the crap that we see, like pedophilia. We're going to have a collective barf when we realize what's really going on and how we've been controlled and how people have used us. We're all going to collectively barf, and that's okay, right? But we need to get to that other side at some point soon. We need to get to that other side of where humans realize that they're a soul in a body that's destined to love and help and be compassionate and give, right? And the only way we do that is by getting to the other side through the darkness and learning about all this negative stuff, and then forgiving the people that did it, right? Like As much as I hate somebody who's involved in pedophilia and I think that they should be in jail for life, it, all of these sick and twisted people, we're going to have to forgive them too. Not only are we going to have to stop them, but we're also going to have to forgive them and try to love them, right? And if they can't accept that, then that's how you do whatever. But that's where we need to get through in order to get to the other side of humanity. And I think biohackers like you, because I love your message. You're talking about love and you're talking about being kind and being nice. That's what we need right now, right? You know what? We don't need everybody, taking the latest pea protein, right? We need people to learn how to love, right? But you can't love unless your biology is somewhat under control, right? That's kind of what the goal of biohacking is, to get the aching knee, the bad thoughts, the messed up thyroid. How can you think about love and joy if your thyroid is completely shot? You can't. It's impossible, right? How can you think about love and joy if you've got cancer of the organs, right? And it's hard. So, clean the body, clean the mind, fix the brain, repair the brain damage, and then get on a spiritual path of love and joy and compassion and helping others. That's my message. That's how I think. That's my philosophy in a
I
nutshell.
love it. I love it, man. That was really beautiful. And yeah, I think context is often missing when everything's talked about that's health related. And with these mind altering, compounds, I think people are jumping, especially in the alternative health community right now, to going to South America and doing an ayahuasca trip, journey, whatever, but not taking care of the magnesium deficiency, which everyone is deficient in, which
Hmm.
activates 3,700 plus enzymes, and the iron overload, which activates the fear center of the cell and the fear trigger. And so all of these things that we can handle first and get the foundation. That's kind of my big message. It's like uh, just get the foundation down, and then I like what you said about having to forgive these people. We kind of have to get our body ready, right, to actually go through these emotions.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. We do have to. It's everything. It's hacking of the mind. It's hacking of the emotions. Hacking of the spiritual self, the higher self, and understanding your place in the world and how everything fits into it. Right. It's interesting you say about the iron, the excess of iron. I have a mineral supplement that I'm using right now. It's actually higher in copper, and all the iron's been taken out of it. Right. So people are starting to figure it out, right? And the magnesium deficiency, man, when I first started taking magnesium, I couldn't believe it. Was like, I'd get the odd migraine here and there, and get that feeling where you get a headache. What the hell's a headache? You start taking magnesium, you're like, man, headaches aren't normal. People think it's normal just to grab an ibuprofen, right? So you just get those basic fundamentals right. All of this crazy stuff that you and I do that kind of people think that's just next level. Don't worry about that right now. If you're sick or you're hurting, get that foundation. Get it dialed in. If you get it dialed in, you're going to be fine.
Awesome. I love it. And I wanted to talk about chaga mushroom too before we run out of time, because we touched on elk antler. Um, chaga mushroom is another fascination of yours, right? And what's one of your first products for Vigor?
Yeah, I love chaga mushroom. It was really the first time I took it. I noticed like this weird like sensation come over my body and going like, oh my god, this is exactly what I need, right? It gained its popularity from a book in the 1960s written in Siberia with chaga and cancer, and they were using chaga to cure people's cancer. I'm not saying anything cures cancer, but what I've noticed on chaga is I've noticed that people are thinking better, their eyesight gets better, their skin tone, skin coloration gets better, their guts are healing. Our chaga, we get great chaga. I think we arguably get some of the best chaga in the world. We've got these guys harvesting in Quebec, northern Quebec, north of Montreal, in the Laurentian Mountains, and the Laurentian Mountains. This is like no man's land. You gotta have an SUV or a 4x4 and a chainsaw to get to this stuff, right? They only harvest when it's the right time to harvest. They're not harvesting it too soon. It's really good stuff. I love it. I think people should, if you want to try good chaga, you try our chaga. This I am selling. We have great chaga, and I think everybody should be drinking, especially in the wintertime. It's a great winter drink. I use it more in the winter than I do in the summer, for sure.
I love it. Yeah, it definitely has more of a winter feel. And I love on your website how you says it supports the nervous system, because that's been my biggest focus this year is stress mitigation. Not just for myself, but just realizing that's the foundation of health. Like when you start kind of quote unquote waking up or like realizing all the stuff that we're talking about, that's an extreme stress. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
the better your brain works, the more stressed you are, kind of counterintuitively. I mean, that's been my situation
Yeah.
because like I could see more, and then the more I could see, the more stressed I am. So I have to kind of take measures to kind of support the nervous system with B vitamins and cholesterol and saturated fat.
Yeah. Well, I would say chagas, if you want to wake up, chaga is a good place to start. The melanin is apparently the nutrient that's for the pineal gland, right? So you start pounding melanin, whatever other side effects you're going to get from having too much melanin, you're feeding that pineal gland. That does produce a change in the brain and in your thinking. And it did for me. The most I ever drank was 8 liters. I wasn't didn't feel great physically, you know, but it was like I was on magic mushrooms. It was like it was different. It was I felt like communicating telepathically. I didn't want to talk anymore. It was just like I was just in this really strange overdosed chaga overdose state.
You're talking to your dog.
She was just looking at me going, "What are you doing, man? You're nuts."
I love it. So, is there a relationship then with melanin and melatonin? Like they kind of convert. Like, is it kind of like tryptophan, serotonin, melatonin? Like, there's kind of a relationship there.
That I'm not. I don't know enough about that to say what that relationship is. I'll leave that to the scientists.
That's interesting, though. I didn't know that about melanin in the pineal gland. That's super cool. I'm gonna experiment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just really cool too. I mean, it's full of it's got beta glucan, betulinic acid. Lots of good research on beta glucan. I love reading the research on beta glucan. Um, Beta glucan in beer, right? If you get yourself a good homemade beer or a good organic beer, it's full of beta glucans too. The yeast, right? So beer isn't a bad thing. I like having a good beer just as much as like having a cup of chaga, but it's got to be organic. It's got to come from a good source. But beta glucans, if somebody wants to go down a rabbit hole, what a great rabbit hole that is, beta glucan.
Yeah, there's this great book by Stephen Herod Buhner called Sacred Healing Beers. And I recommend that for anyone that's into beer, because I think that's the way to do it. 5 gallon glass carboy and brew it yourself and add these herbs and make these. Like, I've always wanted to try like pine pollen beer. I think that would
Oh,
be
that'd be
awesome.
really cool. Well, hops are really, really good for a person, right? Hops are full of terpenes. So people are talking about all these the terpenes in cannabis, right? That's like this terpene does this and this terpene does that. Well, in hops are also full of terpenes. So if you can get a good process of making beer, you can still get terpenes in the beer, right? And that's terpenes are known to be antidepressant, anti-anxiety. I don't know if you've ever had the beer called. It's probably not great. It's probably full of glyphosate. But I don't know if you've ever had the beer called Leffe, Leffe. It's made with using cloves. If you want to chill out, this is a cool hack. If you really want to just like sedate yourself with beer and not be drunk, Leffe beer, Leffe. You can drink that stuff because it's full of cloves. Man, me and my dad slammed 3 each a few years back, both sitting on the couch watching TV, watching. I think we were watching CFL football, which isn't as good as NFL, but whatever. We're just sitting on the couch. We drank these 3 beer, and both of us were just like plowed into the couch. We couldn't believe it. My dad's like, is this what drugs feel like? I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what you're feeling, but I can't. I could barely move.
Oh, that's so funny. I've always only been into wine. I never got into beer, but my dad likes it. And my biggest issue with in excess, I think everything in excess, right? But cannabis, wine, beer is the estrogenic effect, and I think that's pretty well proven. But there are mitigations for that, right? So you can do different things to deal with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think too. Most of the beers, I don't know, most of them are testing. It, yeah, I would say higher than normal in glyphosate, and that's one of the biggest problems. Some of the beers that you need to stay away from is, unfortunately, Heineken. Heineken, you got to stay away from that. Coors, Budweiser, all of that stuff is really, really bad. It's really high in glyphosate. High in parts per billion, but it still contains glyphosate. I think we need to completely eliminate glyphosate from your diet. Beer is a very big risk if you don't want to be exposed to glyphosate. But I don't know. Wine, I like wine. I have to drink organic wine. I can't drink anything that's not organic anymore. If I drink something that's organic, I don't feel good. I react to it. So it's really interesting how sensitive you become once you start kind of cleaning up your person.
Yeah, well said. I like dry farm wines, and I put them on the magnetic code.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, I think a big issue too is the sulfuric and nitric acid from acid rain in that aluminum can, because they're not using a 10-stage reverse osmosis that's doing the job.
No.
And so that aluminum from the can and the beer is going right in, and so that's causing Alzheimer's and dementia. And you combine that with oxidized PUFA and oxidized iron, and I mean you're bound to have neurodegeneration at that point.
Yeah,
So,
isn't that crazy? It's just
yeah.
so sad that we live in a world that's trying to kill us like this. And kill us slowly, not even fast, not even doing the job quick and painless, right? We're suffering, right? But it's guys like you, it's guys like us, it's guys like our friends and guys and gals. I'm sorry, when I say guys, I mean guys and gals. I'm not a misogynist. I love the female. It's people like us that are helping. We need to wake people up. That's kind of what we're here for. I'm not doing this because I want to get rich or I want to get famous. I don't care about that stuff. I want to help people, and we got to wake them up. Don't drink out of aluminum cans. It's so simple. It's hard to do. I know it's hard to stop, but just don't do it.
Yeah, I love that. And it's taking the next step, right? It's not trying to jump up to the top of the staircase. It's just taking that next step. And that might just be going to a water store and picking up filtered water from there, if you're not ready to buy a water filter or whatever.
Yeah, well, what's I don't think has ever been done. The book of how to get into, alternative health or biohacking, based on the information that, say, you have now. A great book would be an introductory guide, right? Each chapter gets progressively more complex. Like, here's the basis, and chapter 2 is we're gonna add a little something else, and chapter 3, when you're here and you got these results. That's never been done. One of the problems in the biohacking industry is so much of this stuff, so much information that's been produced has never been documented correctly, or never been documented enough, right? It's in spurts written by copywriters on people's web pages, right? Like I did copywriting back when I was in university. They gave me the words that I was supposed to put in the article, and I just freaking wrote it. I didn't know what I was talking about, right? So the information, that would be a great book for you to write. Would start kind of put all this stuff together. I mean, how long does a book take to write? Only 3-4 years.
That's a great idea. Yeah. And I think ebooks are awesome because that's an easy way. You save money on printing. People could just download it. And I've read a lot of good ebooks over the years.
Yeah. You know what I like is I like short YouTube videos where people get straight to the point. No intros.
Love it.
Man, I hate those intros. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm this and that. And then you got music playing and all this crap. It's like, dude, I only have 4 minutes. Your video's 6 minutes. You got a 2-minute intro. You're losing me, man. People need that. It's a fast-paced life. But like I said, like some of this information for people to get into it, it's not quite there. Everybody's kind of confused. You see it on your Instagram stories when people are asking you these questions. Some of them, my heart goes out to them. It's just, some of them are really confused about what to do and where they're going. And it's like, man, like, how do we, but nobody's throwing money at us, right? If you weren't telling the truth and you weren't trying to live your truth, then, or you were saying what somebody behind the scenes wanted you to say, you'd be beyond rich by now, right? Same thing with all these biohackers. You look at some of these guys that get really rich and you're going, who's paying the bills? You look at like you take Jack Kruse, for example, when he started breaking down those barriers and walking into the Bulletproof conference, telling everybody that it's not food, it's nature. They tried to shut that guy down. You know what I mean? They're like telling this guy to shut up because no money was thrown his way, right? And people that come speaking the truth, you're not going to get money thrown your way, right? You're not going to be able to spread your message the way you want to spread it. So you just got to work like you're doing from the ground level, knocking over cans, grabbing pumpkins and throwing them off the shelves and causing a little bit of stir, cause a little bit of controversy. Like I think the controversy that you've kind of stirred up, I don't think it's a bad thing at all, right? And And you just got to keep pushing that, keep pushing the envelope, and kind of you got to be a little bit provocative, right? I wouldn't be,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about, some big corporation saying, "Oh, Dave, I like your brand, and let's take you to the top." I'm not worried about that. It's about breaking down the bullshit. That's what it's all about.
I love it. Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's well
That
said or not. People might say, "Yeah, Dave, you're this guy's he's crazy," and I'm not
the
resonating with him.
conspiracy
But
theorist.
yeah, yeah, I don't care what anybody thinks. That's the best part is I could give a shit what anybody thinks about me at all. I really don't care.
But yeah, I'm sure it makes your day. It makes mine when I get a message from someone saying, "Matt, you changed my life. I don't know how I found you, but by the grace of God, I did, and I implemented some of your program or what you share, and I'll never be the same." And just I get those all the time, and it's like, wow, that's priceless. That's more than 100 grand, 500 grand, $1 million. I'd rather have that. You know,
Well,
that's the feeling.
yeah, I know. I mean, like some of the work that I did was on the soul, right? I wanted to figure out. I was given the books "Journey of Souls" and "Destiny of Souls" by Dr. Michael Newton from a friend of mine, and I read these books, and at first I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept that we were a soul in a body, and that we have there's things that happen before we die, and there's things that happen after we die, and the soul goes through its own evolution, and we have a spirit guide, and soul groups, soul clusters, soul mates, and all this stuff, right? And so I kept listening to these books, kept reading these books, and eventually I actually got it. And to me, it occurred to me that really at the end of it, they're going to go, "What did you do? How much?" They're not going to. Nobody cares about how much money you made. Did you help somebody? Did you make somebody's life better? Did you leave a situation? My grandmother always said, "Leave a situation better than you found it, no matter what." And I try to live by that, right? And those are the questions we're going to have to answer after this shell that we're existing in is gone, right? And the soul leaves the body. We're going to have to answer those questions. What did you do? Who did you help people? I don't want to come back and do this again. I want off planet Earth. I'm done here. So I figure whatever karmic crap I got from my past lives, I need to clear that up now. And the only way I know how to clear that up now is by being a good person and trying to help others and leave situations better than I found them. Because I'm not coming back to planet Earth. I'm going somewhere else where it's better. I don't want to have to go out and see my spirit guide or whatever you want to believe and say, "Well, yeah, no, I actually chose to be an asshole and hurt those people for profit." No, so then I got to go and be the person who's hurt by assholes and profit in the next life. I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that shit. I want to be nice now, be loving and kind and joyful, and move on. I'm done.
Are you talking about judgment? Because I think that's kind of the Luciferian
No,
satanic
not talking about judgment
mindset.
whatsoever. I'm
Okay,
talking I'm talking
separate.
purely about the evolution of the amount of love a person is able to give in a lifetime, right? There's no judgment. That's the best part. When you learn that when you die, there's no this heaven, hell, good, bad. It's like, well, these are lessons. We're like kids. We're like kids in a classroom. And do we need more education, or are we ready to move on? But in terms of like, you're a bad person, you need to be punished. No, it's like when you're able to accept that, yeah, I messed up, and yeah, I guess I should learn to experience some adversity, based on what I caused, right? Death isn't a bad thing. You come back to you dying. I don't care. I'm not scared of it. It doesn't bother me because I have a belief of what happens after and before, right? But it's like if you have a situation in your life that keeps coming up and it keeps making you miserable, say you're fighting with a spouse or you're fighting with a friend, you keep fighting over the same stupid shit. Then you break up with that wife or that husband, and then you go and you get another one, and then you start repeating that pattern again, and you're going, I don't know why this is happening. Well, it's happening because you're not learning the damn lesson. And unless you learn the damn lesson, it ain't going to stop, right? And so when I did my past life regressions, I saw things that I was doing in my last life, patterns that were repeating in this life, and I went, oh my God, I need to deal with this shit. If I don't deal with it, I've been dealing with this shit for 2 lives now. And when I learned that, that's when I started going, all of my problems are created by me, are created by who I am and what I'm deciding to say and what I'm deciding to think. And unless I change that, it's going to keep repeating over and over and over. And at times I was a mean and angry person. So I had to learn how to be a nice and kind person. It's that freaking simple. I don't want to come back here. I want to go to the planet where everything's cool and awesome and fun, and everybody's happy. I don't want any glyphosate in my food. I don't want pharmaceuticals in my water. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. No, that's great. Yeah, it's about breaking the cycle. I think that's a lot of these dark people that are doing all this really horrific stuff under, behind the curtain. They're they don't know how to break the cycle.
Well,
Right?
the new thing that I just saw, the new propaganda was, in order to have good in the world, you need to have bad. It's like, oh, okay. So they're trying to, now the new agenda is to try to push this thought experiment that, well, actually these evil people have a role. Without these evil people, we couldn't be good and happy. Yeah. That's the new thing. I can't remember where I saw that, but I was like, I pick up on things like that, right? I pick up on, like, that's a psyop right there. That's a psyop, because evil doesn't need to exist for good and love to exist. That's a friggin' farce. This yin and yang and all that crap. Oh, you need darkness to have light and whatnot. Okay, maybe if we want to talk about physics, but if we're talking about love and the soul and human compassion and kindness, it's two different things. So the new agenda that we're probably going to be seeing is, oh, the evil is good for us because it helps us be happier and good people.
I've been seeing that for years. Yeah, I think they call it duality, and I think that's where the brain damage comes in, because when your brain is damaged, then you're open to all of these really dangerous philosophies that hurt little children and innocent women, and starving people in third world countries. That's really harming them. That's the ultimate end product of having that belief.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel sorry for some of the people that came here hoping to hear the rosiest picture of it. I think some people will resonate with this. I mean, I think people feel a lot like we do, living in this reality, and most of my friends do. Anybody who doesn't, I mean, I've kind of cut off everybody who doesn't, see things aren't. Well, you don't have to see things the same way that I see them, but people that are woke, right? I have a tough time being around people who remain stubborn in their darkness. You know what I'm saying? So, the people that we attract, people that are going to listen to this, and people are going to listen to this to the end, are going to be people that are just like you and I, that are sick of living in this crap and want to do something about it, right? But it's also beautiful. At the same time, I say the crap, but I think it's also beautiful. I think it's amazing. I got a child coming. I can't believe it. I'm 39 years old. I never ever thought I'd have one. I got too busy working. That's amazing. It's so beautiful. I can't wait. I wake up and I love my neighbors. I love the neighborhood that I live in. I got a great yard and I got great friends. Life is really, really good. But you also can't see that life is completely perfect all the time. If you're people like us, you're like I don't want to call us justice warriors, but I call us almost like wandering warriors, like the wanderers. We're wandering warriors. We're trying to put an end to what we see as wrong and trying to promote what we see as right and good and beautiful. And I think we're on the winning side, even though the other guys are winning right now. I think good and kindness is going to prevail. I think the world's going to shift in that place. But it's about people like you and I and others having courage to talk about being good and kind and loving. It's not cool to talk about love. It is fucking way cool to talk about love. I love talking about love. That's my favorite thing.
Oh, that's so great. Well, let's wrap it up with, let's say someone just is getting out of the matrix, and they're just starting to crawl out of the darkness and seeing that there's something else, that they haven't experienced. What would you recommend, just as a starting place of some things that they can implement easily?
I think, well, obviously the water. The water is the biggest thing. You have to change your water. You got to start drinking the good water. And you got to choose, no matter what kind of food you choose, you got to go organic food. You got to try to find the source of where that food is coming from. You got to know the most you can about that food. You got to choose that kind of stuff and eliminate, the exposure to chemicals and pesticides and additives and processed foods, like all that artificial stuff that needs to be eliminated. that's like priority number one. And you got to get outside in the sun, and you got to be not afraid of being outside and getting dirty and getting wet. Um, the cold therapy, that's really good. The red light therapy, I think that's a basic. Um, the beef liver, I like taking the beef liver. I think that's a basic. Things like that, eating animal meats. But I also think that one of the most basic things a person could do is take a trip. Go away. Get away from where you're living, what your environment is. The place that you've been dreaming about. And if you're in California, if it's Yosemite National Park, you've never been there, you need to go sit in there, or Yellowstone, go do it. When people in Canada tell me, well, what do you recommend? I say, go to Banff National Park. It's built over this quartz reserve underneath it, and the energy is so much better and different. And go sit in the spa there. Just go be somewhere else. Go be in nature. Go change your environment for a bit. Those are some of a trip to Banff, if you're living in downtown Winnipeg, is going to snap you into some sort of different vibration or reality quicker than changing your diet for a year will, in my opinion. That's my best advice. Clean that stuff up and go on a trip.
I love it. So good. Well, awesome, David. Thank you. That was really fun. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I never thought I'd ever talk publicly about this stuff, but I appreciate it. I felt comfortable to do it, and I hope somebody gets some benefit out of this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hang on the show. I'm going to close it out. Thanks again. There it is. David Limacher. What a guy. Really love how multifaceted he is. You can definitely get lost going down various rabbit holes, and him and I relate very deeply on that alone. But I think there's a lot of things that are worth looking into that we can use to plan for the future and to secure the health of ourselves, our family, children, and our loved ones. So hope we gave you some food for thought. If anything, I definitely don't agree with David on everything. And the beautiful thing is I don't have to like the guy. We can have different views of spirituality and still be friends. So if you want to check out his products, go to vigr.ca. And I would highly recommend trying his elk antler velvet capsules. They're really great for recovering vegans, especially, that have been restricting protein for many years. And you could also find that, as well as all my other products, on matt-blackburn.com. I have his Chaga and the elk antler up there. And if you use the discount code Blackburn, you can save 10% on anything on his website. Really, really high integrity, powerful products on there. And as always, if you like the show, please share it with a friend, leave a nice review, and that helps to support my work. Today's quote is by Joel Olsteen. When you face adversity, you need to remind yourself that whatever is trying to defeat you could very well be what God will use to promote you.